Good morning and welcome. We're kicking off another week of daily video devotions to the book of 1 Samuel with 1 Samuel 18 this morning. And 1 Samuel 18 is an interesting and maybe even a little bit strange chapter. There's a lot going on in it. If you'll remember, not too long ago, God has rejected Saul as king over Israel, and that doesn't mean Saul just ceased to be king in that moment. He'll actually continue to be king for quite some time. But the prophet Samuel has already anointed David to be the next king. And in 1 Samuel 18, we get some interesting stories about the dynamics of the relationship between Saul and David. The chapter begins with Saul's son Jonathan really befriending David. In fact, I think I would use the word like a kindred spirit. They just become about as close as two people can be. And chapter 18 ends with David marrying one of Saul's daughters. So he becomes Saul's son-in-law as well. But in the middle, the most interesting thing happens. David becomes this mighty warrior. He's so successful in all of his battles because God is with him and God blesses him. And the people of Israel begin to take notice. And the attention that David gets actually makes Saul quite jealous. It makes him quite angry. He becomes envious almost of the attention that David receives. So Saul tries to kill David. He throws a spear at him while David's playing the lyre one day when King Saul was being troubled. And I think it teaches us an important lesson about jealousy. If we're jealous of someone else, if we're envious of some things that they have, a nicer house or a fancier car or some talent or ability they have that we don't and we really wish we did, it doesn't actually hurt the other person. It hurts us. That jealousy and that envy grows within us, and it's sinful. And it can destroy our relationship with that person and with others. And it can destroy who we are as people too. So it's a good warning about how dangerous jealousy and envy can be. And more than that, it's a good story about, if Saul would have been assured enough of his own self, of his own ability as king, and if he'd have been able to recognize the talents and the gifts and the abilities David had, imagine what they could have accomplished together. But instead of being assured of himself and instead of recognizing David's gifts and putting him in positions to be able to utilize those gifts to serve God's kingdom, Saul decided to be jealous instead. And see, that works the same way in our life as well. We don't have the gifts, talents, and abilities that other people have. And we can either be jealous of the people who do have them because they have them and we don't, or we can recognize how much stronger we are together when we can work together and both use the gifts, talents, skills, and abilities that God has given us uniquely, instead of being jealous over the gifts and talents that we don't have. So think about that this week. Think about all the things in this life that make you jealous, and think about how your life would be different if instead of being jealous over those things, you were thankful for the things that God had given to you, and that you were grateful to others that they could use those skills and talents to serve God's kingdom as well. We'll see you tomorrow for 1 Samuel chapter 19.